terms of environment, unfair trade pushes poor farmers in the south into cocaine cultivation and deforestation, overmining and overgrazing in order to meet the increasing demand for cheaper products. Unfair trade also keeps countries in the south indebted. In the classroom, students can be assigned projects to follow the trail of coffee, tea, and cocoa. It could be, for instance, be interesting to reflect on and investigate the links between our cell phone. How many of you have got a cell phone? I think almost all of you. And if you study the composition of cell phone, you have material that are very much in demand in all modern cell phones. It's to do with a kind of metal. There's conflict about the material used in those cell phones. And the bloody conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example. A BBC reporter wrote that it is a far cry from the drama of No Blood in My Cell Phone campaign that a group of NGO and religious communities have launched in Europe to lobby for an embargo on so-called blood tantalum. That's the metal that are being used for the mobile phone. And tantalum is essential in the manufacture of electrical components known as pinheads, capacitors. This regulate voltage and store energy in mobile phones, tens of millions of which have been sold in the past few years. According to the same report, 80% of the tantalum reserve is found in the Congo, an area of conflict. Talking about population explosion, it is common to blame lack of development on overpopulation in the majority of the world. As educators, we would help our students find out the impact of the 1.2 billion Chinese on the environment compared to, for example, the 300 million American. If we assume that the average person in the north consumes the resources of more than 10 people in the south, then maybe we would multiply 300 million by 10 equal to 3 billion. If we take into consideration the damage caused by overproduction and overconsumption in the most affluent countries, such as in the US and in the EU countries, it is easy to understand that the problem is not lack of food or overpopulation, but lack of distribution. If we reduce the overproduction in the north and increase incentive to produce more in the south, a better balance could be the result. At the same time, this would reduce the pressure on the environment and global conflict. As educators, we believe in the value of global citizenship and sustainable development. We need to make it possible for our students to understand the people in other parts of the world. They deserve the same rights to life, livelihood, freedom, security, and proper education. On global governance and accountability, another pillar of sustainable development and global citizenship is democratic and accountable global governance. With the increased information flow and global networks, the continuing denial of democracy, corporate corruption, and violation of human rights by the supposedly global leaders have caused a crisis of legitimacy. When we say about global governance, we tend to think that most developed countries, they have better governance than countries that are not. A recent event on the financial crisis, the Enron case and so on, do demonstrate that sometimes it's the more advanced country they need to re-examine their governance. As educators, it is important to take into the following consideration. It is vital to educate youngsters that they are part of the whole and that the whole has primacy over its constituent parts. What is good for the whole is likely to be good for the parts. As part of this whole, nature does not belong to us. We belong to her. This implies that we should challenge and question the established paradigm that the earth and its non-human inhabitants were created to satisfy human wishes. As Gandhi puts it, there is enough for every man's needs, but not his creeds. The world should not be understood as a pyramid where men put themselves on the top and the rest below. As educators, we should make it possible for our students to understand that human beings have the potential for good and bad, peaceful and violent actions. Education for sustainable development and global citizenship should be oriented towards the development of the positive and creative potential of humanity. Now, on cultural diversity and biological diversity, perhaps related to the development of the nation state, the drive for cultural and linguistic homogeneity and national uniformity have been the dream of many political leaders. In post-independent Africa, for example, many leaders went to the extent of denying the existence of different ethnic and linguistic groups in their countries. They were simply ashamed to admit that the countries were blessed with rich cultural diversity. If we assume that diversity is part of our rich human heritage, then we can see that ethnic, cultural, and linguistic diversity is as necessary as the biological diversity of the planet. Because of its one-sidedness, many people see globalization as synonymous with McDonaldization and westernization. So this common perception of many people in the developing world. The other thing is, does more wealth means that poverty will be reduced? There's a quote: the continued poverty of the majority of the planet's inhabitants and excessive consumption by the minority are the two major causes of environmental degradation. This was a quote from the United Nations Environment Program. When you hear politicians talk about world hunger, conflict, and other strategies, you get the sense that the problem is lack of wealth, knowledge, and means of knowing. However, the hard reality is that massive accumulation of knowledge, advancement in science, wealth, and information has not led to better understanding, empathy of world peace. The mainstream is still operating with the concept of we, the good, versus the evil other, and that the former will prevail over the later. Now, we cannot deny that humankind needs for development is as great as ever. We also need to recognize that our environmental footprint and impact is increasing. However, future development cannot simply follow the model of the past. This is true for the world as a whole and for every community in this country. The global picture is striking. A quarter of the world's people have to survive on incomes of less than $1 a day, and a fifth have no access to health care. Even in the United States, which is a huge concern in the present administration of President Obama. Demand for natural resources such as oil, wood, and water are rapidly increasing, and yet these are finite resources. It is certainly a challenge, and one that is becoming larger. the world's population will increase by half, another 3 billion people.